So, good morning, everybody out there. It is Saturday, and I gotta ask you a question. You, do you now believe there's something going on? Those who are relatively in the mainstream media or in the mainstream, still worried about the elections and foreign policy and all that. I mean, have has things looked so crazy to you as far as the storms and the catastrophes that are back to back? Do you even suspect something? I mean, if you don't, okay, I'll go over that later. But I've been so conditioned for all of this crap that people are now finally sort of waking up to. And I still wonder if people are able to see that it's not about Biden or Trump. It's not about making fun of Biden or praising Trump or making fun of Trump and praising Biden or not even praising Biden, wondering why we don't have another candidate to look at that was given to us to worship, that was different than everything else that was out there, like the dark horse Obama back then when we had Al Gore and we had George Bush, and then in comes this dark horse, which is kind of ironic because he is dark, and he comes in and saves the day. Until then, the conspiracy world just comes into play. And I spent about 10 years in the conspiracy world during Obama's administration, just really questioning everything and questioning what was put there to be totally different than the two parties or the two candidates that we were trying to figure out if that which one was going to be better, Bush or Gore. Yeah. So I'm hoping that you're sort of waking up. And you may not be. I can still see people looking for another hero, like in DeSantis or any of those other GOP candidates, because I don't see anyone in the Democrat side stepping up and trying to even compete with Biden. Right now, who's Biden's competition right now? It's Trump, and he's even taking out their money because they're going to slap lawsuit. They're going to indict him for violating the Constitution. And obviously, they have enough evidence to do so. January 6th was enough right there. And the system knew how radicalized people were. They knew what they were going to act upon it, and they knew he wasn't going to step away and step down because he's catering to his constituents. And they knew he didn't know everything as far as the law around what he was doing and everything else. I mean, everything was going so fast, and he's just, going a million miles per hour. He's not paying attention, and people around him are not paying attention. They're all in for their glory days and stuff. So anyways, I'm hoping that maybe some of you in the mainstream might finally be waking up. I don't know if it's going to be too late or if it's in time, but I mean, if you don't think something is wrong, then you're completely in denial, like completely in denial. And so the last storm that came through, okay, when I was dealing with other storms before this last week, and when they were starting to come, the front or the barometer was starting to drop, or the heat was going up. Excuse me, one of the two. I would feel the heart palpitations. I would feel a little bit of the jitteriness, the anxiety. I would feel a lot of the energy, and I'd have to go to sleep to calm down my just my whole system, and eat food too, because I'd also be really hungry. But this last system that came through, and it was pretty aggressive because there's about 7 tornadoes over there up in the Michigan area. The last couple days, there have been some crazy ass storms. And more than just crazy, there were tornadoes that touched down and caused devastation and so much flooding. So much flooding in Cleveland. All up there in Michigan, different places. There's flooding in Colorado, there's flooding in California, there's flooding in the South. There's like Louisiana's going through their own stuff where there are fires. So you're either fires or flooding. It's going on. And yeah, Massachusetts. I mean, watching cars floating down the freaking highway, watching cars floating down the street, that's pretty crazy shit. And of course, then in Ohio, we had so much rain enough to fill the Cleveland Stadium. I think they said 250 times. Holy shit, that's a lot of water. It's a lot of water. And so, yeah, so I had the hives. That was pretty much it. I had hives last night, and I was really itching. It was really bad last night. They were starting to creep up the last couple days before that pending storm that happened a couple days ago, or a day ago, or whatever. And they weren't that bad, but they came to a head yesterday, and I was just like itching. It was all over my front. I'm like, oh my God, all over down here. It was just so crazy. But I did not have to sleep yesterday. I ate spaghetti, okay, but I did not have to take a nap. I had energy. I was thinking very clearly. I wasn't too amped up to do something or say something. You know, I'm watching my movies and all that stuff. But yeah, it's the urticaria, the hives, that are going to be my indicators, I guess, until my system is cleared out, because I still have this little bit of a hump. Not like a hump, but it's still like right here, but it's not bad, but it's still there. But I have mobility, and I'm fine with it. I really don't, I mean, I guess that is part of my lymphatic system, and it is housing antibodies to go and fight. It has an army. That's, I guess, the home base of antibodies that will go and fight whatever that's in my body that comes up in hives, and then it's carried out through my poop in the morning, because I did a lot of demon releasing this morning, and then the hives are gone. And so, yeah, I might suffer the night before and the day before, okay, and I'll eat food and I'll deal with the itchies and I won't treat them or anything, and then the next morning everything is gone. Okay, and these hives, I looked up what they could be from, and there were so many factors. It could be gnats. It could be, as far as triggering a hive-like situation, urticaria. So they're saying it could be a gnat. It could be bed bugs. I don't have bed bugs. It could be mosquito bites. It could be medications. It could be viruses, bacterial infection. There's so many factors that could trigger hives. And they also said it could be a varicella, VACCINE, which is part of the chickenpox, VACCINE vaccine. And I had the chickenpox as a kid. Okay, I don't know if I had the vaccine back then, but even then, if I did, it wouldn't make a difference. But I had the chickenpox. But again, I've had so much exposure to different types of medication and microbes and herbal remedies that it's so hard to pinpoint where these hives come from. But they were obviously laying so dormant and burrowing in the body for such a long time that now, in this climate change, with the instability in the atmosphere, the hives do come up when the conditions are right and when there is a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and it wakes up the immune system to go push them out yet again. And so the system will push out anything that's foreign, that's able to come out. That's not like some big, huge metal object like an implant, like a stent or a screw. But if you have foreign bodies in your body that are proteins, microbes, because you are 69 trillion microbes, the body will develop its own defense system, so as long as you feed it, and push out those offending antigen. That's called antigen. Antigen isn't really something specific. It's just anything that is too numerous for the body to handle, that it doesn't have a place for it to go, and all it does is take up resources. It's like a useless eater. So when you're holding so much antigen in your body, then you have to develop antibodies to go and push out the antigen, push out the useless eaters that are just taking up resources, taking up space, so that way you can still live. So when people talk about useless eaters with the whole NWO, well, they characterize it correctly, because you also have useless eaters in your body that you have to systematically release. You can't just go and do a one-fail atomic bomb or something, because you'll destroy yourself if you try to do something all at once. That's why the symptoms and the getting the sick systematically over however many years is the way to release the demons and take out substance so you don't destroy yourself. Or else you saw what happened in World War II, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. They weren't just slowly releasing the useless eaters. No, they just one fell swoop, big huge bomb, annihilated everything. Nothing lived within that vicinity of that center point of that, of ground zero. Okay? Yes, hello. But we're not going to be talking back and forth, Sir Raj. All right? Okay, so that's the whole point of the J world. The whole J world is to systematically release the demons, release the offending proteins without destroying yourself at the same time, without attacking yourself at the same time. And that's why I said the disrespect to bodies and minds and spirits is using antibiotics and surgeries and drugs to attack the life in your body. Okay? And so humans right now are in the process of discovering that they have disrespected their body, mind, and spirit and everyone around them by violating the sanctity of the life in their body. Not releasing the demons, they are actually violating the sanctity of life in their body, cutting into themselves and using aggressive concoctions against the life in their body. And so now we are redefining what life is and redefining how to respect ourselves and respect the life around us. But the system is now going to be purging out those who don't respect life. Because when you are constantly violating the laws of your body, violating the sanctity of the life in your body, you won't be able to handle adaptation or evolution. You will keep trying to treat your disease. What's disease? Dis-ease is still harboring the little buggers in your body that you should have released, but you keep attacking and compounding the issue. And so while I have the J world as far as an evolutionary response to all this climate change, and you're not attacking the life in your body or cutting into yourself, and you're releasing those demons and dealing with the pain, then we have to also look at the social constructs of males and females, men and women, and how men and women interact with each other and their respect or lack of respect for each other, and as well as the roles of women and men, and then what mothers are teaching their sons and daughters. And so that's what I've been focusing on the last couple of days. What women are developing in the population, what roles they're forcing their daughters and sons into to then be under so much suffering, if not then, also in the future. And so right now, women are faced with three choices. They're either a baby mama or a baby maker, somebody's sexual plaything, or they're a death angel. So when you think about baby mama or baby maker, she thinks she can get in a relationship with somebody who wants to marry her, but no, he's just using her for sex, or thinks he wants to get married, but doesn't realize what kind of responsibility it takes to raise a family. And so then he leaves and she's stuck with the kid, and now she's a baby mama, or she's a wife to somebody. So she's making babies, and she's like a Princess Diana. She's like second fiddle or third fiddle because the husband is so into his mother and his family. And so she's just then the broad mare. She's just developing babies to broaden the family. And then, or somebody's sexual plaything. She's just an arm piece, eye candy. Just an addition to. Sidekick. The plus one. Or she's a death angel. She's selling you herbs. Heavy, aggressive spices. Antibiotics. She's selling you surgeries. She's selling you pharmaceuticals. So she's a death angel. Or she saves herself. She doesn't try to save anyone. Because we know the road to hell is paved by good intentions, and taking away people's pain, you are taking away their life. And so even though a person might be in pain and they're dealing with some shit, she has no way to guarantee she can take away the pain. But what is she taught? To use FDA-approved protocols to destroy the life in the body, but obviously not all the life, but the life that is trying to release. And so she is systematically, through good intentions, taking away someone's life, systematically and progressively. And so now she realizes she can't go and save people. She cannot take away people's pain. It's not her place to do that. Her place is to give life and sustain life, not take away life. But she was taught by other women and men that her role is to not only give life temporarily, according to the directives out there, but also to take away life systematically through love, through hate, through empathy, and then also trying to be a savior, and through the almighty dollar. And so when she finally realized that's what she was used for, if she even can face that, then she pulls back, says, I'm not selling you supplements, I'm not selling you herbs, extracts, detoxes, or surgeries. I'm stepping away from the health and wellness world because it's setting you up to fail, and making her a patsy. And she saves herself. And she deals with the pain and facing all of her demons of what she contributed to, and then hopefully she can give some representation to her sons and daughters. And so then I'm like, the religious people and the atheists are two sides of the same coin, developing very rigid and traditional roles. The spiritual people, the occultists, are following in lockstep with the religious right. Because again, there are very rigid gender roles, and they're both into organic, all into the spirituality, praying to somebody, worshiping somebody, conjuring up some kind of spirit from wherever, and then selling the herbs, selling the pain-free lifestyle, selling the diets and the food mitigation, and all about love, love, love. And so her children will be sacrificed to the system because she can't save her kids. I mean, maybe 20 years ago, her kids could, 20 or 30, 40 years ago, her kids can go play outside, right? They can go play outside, ride bikes, play basketball, draw pictures, hang out with, play dates and all that. And things were relatively okay. There wasn't too many storms. There weren't too many predators around. Now, generations later, when we have reproduced children on bodies who have been relatively decimated through the medical holistic system, now we're getting anomalous children who turn into anomalous adults who might be a little bit predatory, and then have to be treated through the medical system, psychiatric system, or they're in jail. And so, when you have a third generation mother who has a child that has all these different deficits and behavioral problems and criminal propensities, well, she can't change that child. I mean, she could try, but she doesn't have the training to do that. So then that child is going to be now sacrificed, yes, but also a human experiment to the psychiatrists and the psychologists and the medical people to figure out how to modify that child's behavior or that adult's behavior biologically or mentally. And it could be through different drugs. It could be through different antipsychotic drugs, antidepressants. But then that also compounds the issue. And if it's a male or a female, it's a female, and she has all these different drugs in her system, and then she wants to get married. Imagine what the offspring are going to be like. And so when you think about it, the children will be sacrificed to the system and to the family, because the family is going to keep reproducing, bodies in deficit, the crapshoot of how that kid's going to turn out, and then there is no real future for that kid, because what's that kid going to do when they don't have it all there to really compete? They might have a specialty if someone even finds that specialty in that kid, but they either become a father, a criminal, a wife, a baby maker, or a sexual plaything for somebody, a concubine or a first wife. And so her children will be sacrificed to the system and to the family, because you, mom, never knew any better. You were a slave. You became a slave through your offspring. Women, you have a choice. You have a third choice. Save yourself. Okay? And so then men will be faced with three ways to be. So men will be faced with three ways to be from the choices of their mother. Now, that's probably an awkward sentence. I just said it really quickly. But there's going to be three types of personalities these men are going to embody. Okay? He'll be a prickish, arrogant alpha male. And you can kind of see those in some of these patriarchal societies where the men are in control. They're arrogant. They rule over the women. Women are second fiddle. Women are just made to have babies and not speak. Women are in the same, level as the children when you think about it, in some male societies. And so men will be faced with three types of personalities they will embody because of how their mother raised them. Because even the mother who may not have really raised them, it was the father, but she allowed the father to disrespect her and put her down at the level of a child who can only be seen and not heard. And so, yeah, when women don't stand up for themselves to be that role of standing up for herself and not allowing someone to disrespect her, then she will develop a boy who will be extremely arrogant, who will treat women the same way. So, men will be embodied three different types of personalities. Prickish, arrogant alpha male who has no respect for women, who uses women, no respect for himself or anyone around him, and is extremely sexual to the point of harming other people to get what he wants. Now, there are shades of that, because you can have an arrogant male who has a little bit of respect. I mean, there's obviously different levels to degrees of disrespect, but he knows in his world, the women rank second to him. He is going to be mostly the breadwinner, but also the one that will lay down the law. And she might have a job here and there, but she really is the one to raise the kids, but not really raise them. She's the one to service the children, feed them, clothe them, go to play dates, and take them to school. But he's the one that makes the actual major decisions about what they go into, what they do. He rules the roost. All right. And so you see that in the population. Men out there that predominantly chase tail, collect women, and women are disposable because there's so many hot females out there. They're looking to make a name for themselves or get attached themselves to some influential male who's hot. And so you see that in some people. I'll give you an example. Andrew Tate. Google Andrew Tate. He is the quintessential alpha male. And he has a slew of hot women he can just run through at any point in time in his life. I mean, he has some interesting things to say. I don't agree with everything he says, but he is the epitome of an alpha male. And yeah, he's a little bit prickish and arrogant. Okay? Then you have the subservient male, who is a mama's boy, who only listens to his mother, and that's it. Even his wife does not hold any kind of influence in his life. Or he is a combination of both being an alpha male who is subservient to his mother, treating his wife and his women like shit, as he only worships his mother, mommy dearest. And so I posted what that idiom means. I mean, it's based on a movie, but there's also other definitions based on the context. Mommy dearest was a popular expression from about 1840 to 1930. Dearest here is functioning as an adjective or noun in apposition meaning most dearest person. This was generally a sincere and affectionate term. The phrase mommy dearest, a variant of mother dearest, was extremely rare until Christina Crawford's 1978 memoir of life with her abusive mother, Joan Crawford, and the 1981 movie. Since then, it has become an ironic shorthand for a disagreeable and abusive mother, and is never used literally to mean dearest mother. So it's a mother that just, who, is disagreeable, who is abusive, yes, and potentially could even be messing with her son. And her son still worships her, no matter how much she fucks him up, like Norman Bates' mother. He still worships her and then hates all other women because of what his mother has told her and has embodied during his formative years. Or you get a male who finally releases those demons and saves himself, not following those outcomes because of how his mother raised him or did not raise him. Okay, so he might release his demons, release all that angst of testosterone, and not saying he's going to be limp and effeminate, but he can still embody a strong male who doesn't have those types of misogynistic ways and narrow views, and he becomes more tolerant to the world that's out there. He becomes more tolerant that some males will embody more effeminate characteristics, and there's nothing wrong with that. We are finding out that all humans can evolve and change in different things. What do I mean different things? Different characteristics. Even different phenotypical characteristics, physical characteristics. Even intellectual and personality characteristics. Because when you think about what the different personalities based upon the four humors, the phlegmatic, which is stoic, expressionless, the most extreme where you're just, there's no emotion. But then there is the sanguine, the happy, and I was actually hawking up happiness. What do you mean by that? Because when I hawk up these loogies and I'm releasing demons from back here and all the urticaria, there's a little bit of blood in the phlegm. That's the redness. That's the sanguine. That's the happy, according to the four humors and what color the bile is that comes out of the body. Then there's a black bile, that is earth, and that's more melancholic, I guess. And then there is the yellow bile, and that yellow bile is the anger. It's the fire. It's the fury. And when I had that heartburn a couple days ago, I was actually releasing yellow bile out of my ass because that was the anger of the heartburn when I ate the cabbage to finally allow the body to release. Okay? And so when the men finally release those demons out of their body, which is all the sanguine and the black bile and the yellow bile, now they're not possessed by some kind of demon that's running their world. And then who knows? I mean, who knows what the outcome is? We have yet to see it, because that's a lot of demons for men to release, and it can't be through their penis. It's got to be through other ways. Because if it's through their sperm, they're going to deplete themselves. They'll be sucked dry by the universe. Not even by a woman, but if they keep releasing their sperm, yeah. And so it's painful to stay whole again. It's painful not to give in to those urges that you were programmed to give into. And that's the whole seminal conservation. There's a spirituality around that. There are religions around that. I mean, monks do it, I guess. And so I've been blowing my nose like crazy. I have iced coffee. And so there are very few and far between males that are, thank you, Ron, hi Ron, that are going to evolve. Okay? So right now, as it stands right now, men are being phased out because many of them choose not to evolve. And the women in their life and the men in their life refuse to let them evolve. Okay? And so men have a hard time changing. That's why a lot of men out there, hey Ron, so a lot of men out there are resisting what's going on with the New World Order. And I completely understand, because it is pretty jolting when someone's intentionally carving out places of the earth and people are getting caught in the crossfire, literally. And it sucks to watch people who don't have any defenses succumb to what's going on. Oh, I understand the pain of what's going on. I really do. And just because I know that what they're doing, they're trying to release the demons. They're trying to get rid of useless eaters. Just like you, when you're releasing the demons out of your body, you're getting rid of the useless little eaters, the useless juvenile cells. They're eating you out from the inside, destroying you. And so if you understand what the J world is doing, is releasing the useless eaters out of the body without attacking them. Well, how do you release useless eaters in the community? You can't tell them, well, okay, leave. Where are they going to go? They're going to go and camp somewhere else and cause chaos somewhere else, right? So the system has to use ways and means to figure out how to release the demons, what they deem as a demon, what they deem as a useless eater. And some people who are not as evolved as other places may be caught in that crossfire and released into the universe. And so when I introduce change, okay, I get a lot of pushback. I got a lot of pushback from, yes, both men and women, but a lot of men, yes, have told me some violent shit. And so have some women. Because the women are programmed right now in this world, the women are programmed to destroy. And the women are programmed not to evolve. Even though they have the capacity to be evolutionary, they've been programmed not to evolve and to resist change. And then the men in turn follow in lockstep with that. And so I've dealt with so many men who told me very violent words or have sent me very violent emails or said very violent shit on my Facebook. And I didn't even bring up the male position. I just introduced change. And so, boy, were they ready to string me up, calling me a witch, bitch, cabbage, because, hey, John, consent. And boy, were they ready to string me up, calling me a witch, bitch, cabbage, because the females around them radicalize them. You know who runs these pages that are against me? It's females. Females that don't want to change. Females that have a lot of children. Females that are stuck in one way because they taught people around them never to change and make sure that she does not change either. If females actually looked at how they acted in this world, how they're acting in this world, what they're teaching their children, if they looked from the outside in, looking into their home from the outside from a window, and watched her interact with her kids, what she says to them, what she says to strangers on Facebook, she would be ashamed of how she dealt with me. She'd be ashamed of what she taught her kids. She'd be ashamed of a lot of things. But when you're under the influence or you're cured and you've had your feelings basically surgically taken out of you, then you become a zombie destroyer until you finally get your humanity back. When you're not under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and sex, and religion, and spirituality, and psychedelics, and groupthink, when you finally, and you're feeling everything, you're feeling the life in your body, she might finally feel a little remorse for how she has interacted with the world and how she has shit on evolution and taught men to shit on evolution, because it's the mothers that teach the children their tolerances and intolerances. And so if the mother cannot teach tolerance to her child grows up, you hope that child can finally see that maybe it's not lucrative to follow his mother, who is a destroyer, that he now needs to go and break away from that concept of destruction and bullyism and save himself, because his mother's too far gone, or her mother is too far gone, but he or she has a chance to redirect what she was taught for generations. And that's how influential women are, because they train people to use them and make them destroyers of evolution. And so I'm glad in a lot of ways that we've had to experience the shit that I've had to experience for a few years. So there's so much evidence to show how women have trained people to destroy evolution and destroy her children and destroy anyone that brings up anything new or different. Now you see how this works. Now you see the mothers are wholly responsible for what is going on right now. Because I've had women tell me they have children. She's like, yeah, my sons are laughing at you right now. I've had a mother who claims to be very upright and Christian email me and tell me to my email that she has trained her sons to laugh at somebody who has ideas, to bully someone who has different ideas. She has trained him to do that, and she's proud of that. Can you imagine that? Of course you can, because it's so accepted. Do you realize the system allowed all these mama bears to attack not only their children with all the pills, powder supplements, and detoxes and food mitigation, but also attack someone with new ideas? Now, not literally like, out there way back in the Salem witch trials, but virtually on the internet. The system radicalized women to destroy. If women don't realize that they're being used as a fucking tool, they will continue to be used by the women around them and by the men around them to be used as a tool, as a patsy. And so women have to realize what they're being used for. To not only nation build and give up their part of their body for someone to experiment on, because your children are part of your body and someone is experimenting on them or using them as a plaything to consume and then be disposed of. When women finally wake the fuck up of what they've been used for, they wouldn't be proud of teaching their children to bully somebody. But when women right now are proud of teaching their children to bully somebody, that's why we're in a great reset. Because you can't convert someone who thinks in that way and who develops groups to do that to other people and teaches their children to do that. That's why we're in a great reset. So when the son worships his mother and she worships him, how many mothers are developing a Norman Bates situation? When the sex demons of urges already built into the male from porn, circumcision, I know, Ron. He says, sadly, critical thinking is something that is no longer accepted. Well, I mean, yes, you are right there. And then it got to take it further than that. Because what are you critically thinking about? How do you define critical thinking, as it could mean different things? Because college offers critical thinking skills, but they have critical thinking skills within very strict parameters. And then the conspiracy world has their own critical thinking skills. And the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims and all the different religions have their own critical thinking or their version of it. So then what does that actually mean? Then we have to go even deeper than just critical thinking. Okay? So when the sex demons of urges are already built into the male from porn and circumcision and gender roles, and then on top of that, a toxic, puritanical mother brainwashing her son against females, and then the son has urges, what kind of monster did she develop and create? And so she developed a woman hater. A woman destroyer. And there are men that think women are horrible and hate them. And there's some of those are serial killers out there that we've seen or heard about the last 100 or so years. The Black Dahlia, she was destroyed by somebody who hated women. Well, there's Manson, who destroyed Sharon, or encouraged the women to destroy other women, like Sharon Tate. There's a lot of men out there that hate women. Like literally hate women. Or uses them. So while on the other side, a meddling mother will instruct her son to be the man of the house, and with what all that entails, and his wife has no say, and she is then reduced down to servant to his mother and him. And so the wife is reduced down to servant to his mother and him, begging to be heard. But nope, the mother-in-law and the son collared the wife into servitude. Okay? And you see that. Well, obviously you saw that in the royal family. Princess Diana had no fucking say. That is the quintessential wife who has absolutely no influence at all. She is just a broad mare. She is just the one that pops out the children, is there to sort of raise them. But if she sees something different for them, she has to go through the husband and go through the mother. And if she wants to do something different for herself, she has to ask permission. And if it's not in line with what they're trying to represent, especially in the royal family, they said no, or do it under closed doors. But then, that tried to happen and all that stuff that happened behind closed doors was put out there. But imagine that in just your regular run-of-the-mill population. With small businesses and families with the matriarch. And if you marry into a small business and you're the wife, or some influential waspy situation, and you're a wife, the son is so beholden to not only his parents, but especially his mother. And that mother-in-law will get her hooks into everything and wield and rule with an iron fist. So nope, the mother-in-law and the son collared the wife into servitude. And so that is how rigid, destructive, and deficient females will raise their sons because she has been damaged by her own family. That is how rigid, destructive, and deficient females will raise their sons to be because she has been damaged by her own family. And so there's even families that will destroy their their sons and their daughters and abuse them. And, there's alcohol, there's drugs, there's all these other things that go along with that. And so these girls and boys are living in fear and are damaged, okay, by the boyfriends, by the fathers, by the mothers. And so then after she's been so damaged by her family, then she's then off to go get married. And what is she bringing into that world? And so now watch all the documentaries around the sons and the husbands committing violent crimes or consumed by alcohol because the mother never took a stand for her own identity. She was still suffering. She was still suffering from being set up to fail by her family, forced into a marriage, sex relationship to a man who had no respect for her or their child. So imagine that woman, that mother in the Murdoch case, raising that kind of entitled boy, and she probably allowed, of course she did, or she would have left the relationship if she wanted to take a stand for her son. But no, it was the father that was allowed to let his son do whatever the fuck he wanted. And of course the mother was like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Do whatever you want. Drink alcohol. Use women. Go and party. And you saw what happened with the Murdoch case. And so she had to have been damaged somewhere in her family for her to accept that type of behavior from her husband and from her son. She allowed her son to disrespect her and the family and the community, and she allowed her husband to disrespect her and the family and even his son. Because not holding your son accountable for the bullshit that he does out there is disrespecting him. He created a monster, and so did she, because they both came from damaged backgrounds. Or the wife or baby mama was so toxic due to her own family damaging her, she became so difficult to deal with, so he left to save himself. Okay, so there's that side. It's not always the man's fault. Sometimes a woman is so damaged by her own family. There was maybe incest, there was molestation, there was rape, there was drugs and alcohol, and so she was so damaged by her family and her community. And then she goes and tries to get married, and her demons start coming out. And the potential suitor, who may have had a baby with her, is like, you know what? I ain't getting with crazy. I am not putting myself in this. And he would be well within his right to leave because he's not going to kill himself or destroy himself just to raise that child. Now watch your Facebook. Now watch your Facebook. No, I hear what you're saying, Ron. I do. Yes, circumcision is child abuse and all of that. Now watch your Facebook. Norman Bates, I watched that on Netflix. Norman's relationship with his mother is toxic. As a child, his mother, Norma, brainwashes him into believing sex is a sin and all women except her are whores who want to corrupt him. Despite this, Norman and Norma live alone together and are extremely close until she meets her fiance, Joe, whatever. But that's the thing, when there is sex anywhere where you're pushing family and you're pushing the sex, whether it's sex with a husband or wife or sex with a girlfriend and you're pushing family, that's a whole lot of demons. That's a whole lot of demons. And when you're bitten by the succubus and the incubus, imagine how that manifests when someone has some mental issues and they have a perception of women based upon what his mother has said and what his mother represents. And then he looks out there at all the different movies. Okay? And so, yes, Jeffrey Dahmer as well. But imagine what kind of monster is developed when you are using sex as the platform And that includes pushing for the family. People are like, oh my God, the family is so moral. Do you realize how much divorce happens in families? Do you realize how much abuse happens in families? Do you realize how much drugs and alcohol happen in families? Do you realize how much violence, domestic violence happens in families? No, family isn't the moral way to go. Obviously, you have people who are so Christian or so Catholic or so Jewish or so Muslim or so atheist committing violence in their family. Okay? We're seeing that. No, the family isn't the most moral thing. That's why I mentioned the Manson family as a representation of families. Back in the 1960s, they were telling us something. They were setting us up to finally look at what the family actually is. Very dangerous. Very fucking dangerous. And so now it's not about developing a family or having a wife or a husband or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a concubine or a sex thing. So when we have these 15-minute cities that people are resisting, which I completely understand, you're so used to your freedom. But when you're at home, facing your demons, and if you resist what's going on, if there are 15-minute cities and you're out beyond a certain time, or you go outside of the 15-minute city, which I don't know how extreme it's going to get, then you'll be fighting the authorities and whatever else goes on there. But when you're at home, reading to broaden your brain, expand your brain, when you're reading and writing and cooking and releasing demons and you're becoming whole again, you're going to build up yourself, your self-esteem, build up your body, mind, and spirit, not age out and die from some preventable disease like cancer and chronic illnesses, aging process. You will actually become a whole person and potentially even immortal if you can handle your predisposed issues. But if you can't, in a 15-minute city, the hospital will be right down the street for you to go and end up in the morgue someday as they treat you out of existence. Okay? So it's not about having a husband or wife or a girlfriend or boyfriend or a concubine or a sexual plaything or a family. Now the system wants people to individually build themselves up. I've been doing that the last 3 fucking years. I haven't really left the house that much the last 3 years because I had to release my own fucking demons. I had to eat all the food. I had to feel the pain of all the demons in my body coming up through skin issues, headaches, body aches, muscle aches, rashes, hives, and even, some mental anguish because when you're releasing demons, you're releasing trauma from your body. And it takes being at home to do that. It takes not being distracted by all the bullshit out there. But if you're obviously in hurricane-prone areas, in areas where it can flood, in areas where they can, and fires, then now you have to save yourself from the floods and the fires and everything else. So now you have to figure out where the fuck to live so you can go and become a whole person. Because if you're on the coast in Florida, out there like in Miami, one day these hurricanes are going to wipe out all of fucking Miami. It's already been projected. There's the Navy map that shows you Miami will be underwater at some point. It might be sooner than later. So then you have to figure out where the fuck to live. Well, I live here in the Northeast in Ohio, almost in the perfect place, not too north and not too south. I'm in Northeast, but I'm right below the snow belt and right above where all those tornadoes, like in Columbus and Zanesville and Cincinnati, they all get hit by all these freaking tornadoes. Well, not so much in the city, but more so out in the country. But we know that Cleveland and Canton and Akron and Canton and Youngstown and Sandusky and all that, where there's going to be 15-minute cities. I'm fine with that. Where I live, I'm fine with that. Because I know we're going through a great reset. I am not going to resist what's going on. I'm going to keep building my brain and my body to become stronger and stronger. So when all this blows over, and it will probably be for 20 years, there's so much devastation that we have to look forward to. Then I'll be so strong for the next environment. And I will never, ever use medication again, never, ever use herbs and extracts again, never, ever, ever turn to the medical, holistic energy healing world again. So I will never face having to deal with building my body back up from destruction and deficiencies based upon how they treated all my disease because they mischaracterized the energy. And so then now women have to then come to terms with what they've cultivated in our society. This is what women cultivate in their family: destructive, entitled husbands, fathers, and sons. And so if women do not stand up to the destructive men raising destructive men, their men and boys will end up like this. The Murdoch case. And I'm not saying worship the women and give them everything they want. I'm saying maybe find a way to redirect the boys away from family, porn, and gender roles, but not subscribe to be the complete opposite of some gender role. Women need to strategize or they will develop a demon destroyer out there. In turn, women or mothers are developing subservient women to be a wife or a baby maker, and also end up in OnlyFans or Instagram selling sex and makeup to anyone who listens. Okay? So now mothers, look at what you are advertising as far as your child. All right? That's great. They're doing great academically at 5th, 6th grade. There are a lot of girls out there that do great academically if they have that background, that support system. But it's going to be more than just academics. Are they allowed to release their demons? Are you treating all their disease? Are you allowing them to rest? Are you forcing them into so many activities to keep them so occupied? Are you mischaracterizing disease and symptoms? Okay, so that's great. They might be smart academically, but they still have their biochemistry they inherited from you to deal with, and it may come up sooner. Are you ready to allow them to release those demons and feed themselves and not get caught up in what they should look like or act like? Are you giving them the time to rest and sleep when they are tired? And if they are so wound up like ADHD and ADHD, you're not going to drug them. Are you going to allow them to release that energy? And if they get sick trying to release that demon, are you going to allow them to release that demon that causes them to be so ADD? Or are you going to stuff the genie back in the bottle and have that genie torture that child? See, having children is not what it's cracked up to be. It's more than just like, oh, hey, I'll just feed you and clothe you and send you off to school. You got to imagine how much suffering's inside, how much suffering they inherited from you. All of your unresolved trauma that you've stuffed back in your body and then it carried into that child. Oh yeah, raising children is not what it's cracked up to be. Let me tell you. And people have babies now, oh, they'll realize it at some point. So in most cases, it is too late for the women, mothers, to stuff the genie back into the bottle. However, she can save herself after she comes to terms with what she has developed and contributed to, if she can even question her own lifestyle and beliefs. In my opinion, women and men have a better chance to survive if they admit to themselves what damage they developed from their own trauma they never faced and never released, only compounded. So I would say most men and women will not admit to themselves their part in this depopulation agenda. And therein lies the problem. And so we get to watch and see how everything turns out. And so I said, oh boy. Traditionalists in our society will enslave naive girls from the Midwest, South, and indigenous regions to be a brood mare. A brood mare, meaning a female horse kept especially for breeding. A female horse kept especially for breeding. Learn more. And then when she starts breaking down from disease and deficiencies, she is let out to pasture or sacrificed or divorced. Because again, when a woman starts breaking down, after she has like 3 or 4 kids and she has trauma that she has not faced and she has been using or being under the influence to escape that, then her wrath and her anger is now even more at the surface. And the men and the kids have a hard time dealing with that. And so they have to get a divorce because she's out of control. Yeah, that's what's going on right now. Or her child will be born deficient with special needs, and then one day the child will succumb to disease. Yeah. And so that's why I posted the Wikipedia of steel magnolias. Because that was telling us what traditionalists are doing to the women. And how women have been conditioned to want a family, to want to please the man who makes the money. And so I'm like, yeah, your kids are cute, but will they survive their world? So people are like, yeah, look at my kid, so cute. Okay, yeah, all kids are fucking cute. I like hanging out with children. I've always liked hanging out with children. Because they're innocent, they're fun. You get to see the eyes through something innocent that hasn't seen stuff before. You get to see the eyes that are wide in wonder of the new things that they come upon. But in this environment now, in 2023, cute ain't gonna cut it. Cute is not gonna fucking cut it. Do they have the strength and the will and the body, mind, and spirit to handle climate change? Or will they be taken down systematically through all the treatments when their body is trying to push out the demons and evolve? So yeah, your kids are cute, but will they survive you, mom and dad? Will they survive their community? Will they survive climate change? And so that's really like the question to ask when you think about it. Will your grandchildren survive climate change? Will you even survive climate change, mom and dad? Or are you going to leave your kids to be an orphan? And then the system will use them for whatever they use them for. And so when I said yesterday about the blue roofs and people are posting about blue roofs, it's not just blue. Blue is not just like, okay, it's the savior against the laser. Okay, because you can have a blue cloth, a blue rug, and that could, that will obviously burn through lasers. So the color blue on rooftops and what the rooftops are made from might actually neutralize the lasers used in DEWs. So not really the color blue. It's like blue is a representation of the oxidation of copper oxidizing in the environment. You've seen like in different churches made from copper roofs out there. The oxides, they look a bluish green. And over time, they look bluish green. But then when you have a copper roof and then you paint it blue, then people will have a literal association that blue is what's going to save you from the DEWs. Well, no, that's more of a symbol. Blue is a symbol of what happens when copper oxidizes. And you say, what about ceramic? Well, ceramic is made to be in heat, but you can take a laser and etch into ceramic stuff. So I don't know if blue ceramic is immune to lasers. But the color blue on rooftops and what the rooftops are made from might actually neutralize the lasers used in DEWs. And so I said, additionally, blue lasers are used as an illumination source in fluorescence microscopy. On top of that, industrial applications such as heating up materials, cutting, and welding benefit from good power absorption. Materials such as titanium, copper, or gold are able to absorb about 65 to 80% of energy from the blue laser. So that's why the alien spaceships are all gold, because they can handle the heat going from one atmosphere to another, if we're going to use that context. So why not wear a gold suit then? Wear gold teeth, wear gold everything, right? Have a gold house to protect yourself from all the lasers in space, or titanium or copper. And so then I found this thing about interference. So when I asked the question, I know that when you have relatively equal electron for electron, you neutralize. That's salt. When there's so many salt nanoparticles that are applied to a cell, and they're about equal with the excess coming off and going to the next cell, then you neutralize that energy. You make it cured. That's electron for electron, equal electron for electron. Okay, any excessive electrons go to the next cell, and then that cell gets woken up, right? And dealt with and all that. All right, so if you think about a laser hitting some kind of metal, and there is physics formulas and energy algorithms from that metal that may absorb or counteract or even neutralize, then you're like, okay, constructive interference happens when two waves overlap in such a way that they combine to create a larger wave. Destructive interference happens when two waves overlap in such a way that they cancel each other out. Okay? And so it's no different than taking a bunch of J juice and it wakes up your system, because that's electrons that are unequal. And so it wakes up stuff, but then you take so much J juice, now it's electron for electron. You cure yourself, but you still trap the stuff inside. And so that's kind of the same thing. Salt is ionic and it's energy, so are lasers. I mean, it's obviously a different scale and level of degree of energy, but it has the same reference, has the same, same concept, I guess. Metal roofing that can be made from a variety of different metals, including copper, aluminum, steel, and tin. Titanium? That's not tin. Metal roofing is the second most popular roofing material in the U.S. thanks to its durability and longevity, and potentially even save you from DEWs. So if you have a copper roof, when you have a copper roof and there's DEWs coming from the sky, they're not coming from the ground and going up, no, they're coming from the sky, and so it hits the roof, it bounces off, or it absorbs the energy, it doesn't burn, and then the next house who doesn't have a copper roof will burn from that laser. See, I'm not going to get a copper roof, okay? Because if they're going to take out my whole town, and I have a copper roof, let's just say, and I'm the only one here, they're going to force me out anyways because it's not deemed livable. If they're going to totally take away this whole area here because they want to use it for something else, I'm not going to live here by myself. They're not going to let me do it. They won't let people live in houses over there in Hawaii that are the one house that survived all that devastation. They're forcing them out. It's not livable. It's too dangerous per OSHA. It's hazardous. And do you really want to live around all this devastation? If I'm the only house here and all my houses or all the houses around me are all, no. I would be forced to move, no matter what. But I would probably be the one to survive. Okay, there's that. But I mean, at this point, if they're going to take away your town, you're screwed anyways. Are you going to invest in all these things like a copper roof and a copper everything so you can, at this point, figure out where they want people to live? They want you to live in more of the inner city, and not so much out in the rural areas or in nice areas like Hawaii and Maui. And then, okay, fine. Because the more you resist, the more they're going to be more strategic to find a way to get to you. And they will. The system will. They already planned this. They already know your reactions. Okay? And so what causes copper to turn blue? The natural weathering of copper to the characteristic blue-green or gray-green patina is a direct consequence of the mild corrosive attack of airborne sulfur compounds. In the atmosphere, these compounds combine with water vapor to form dilute oxidizing acids which react with copper surfaces. And so I knew people in California who applied copper roofs to their home. I knew roofers who laid out copper roofs on houses. And when copper oxidizes, it turns blue. And so, I mean, it's pretty expensive to get a copper roof. I wouldn't do it for my house. Now, if I was in a rich area, if they're going to decimate that area anyways, would it maybe make a difference? You just have to understand what's going on. You don't want to invest in a copper roof because no matter what, you invest $72,000 on a copper roof and they decimate your whole area, you'd be forced to leave anyway. So you just wasted that money. But you've survived. Okay. So figure out where the system wants you to live versus trying to resist what's going on. All right. Let me drink my iced coffee. I made some iced coffee. It's good. I had groceries brought to me yesterday. So I have condensed milk and espresso and cream and oat milk. And it's yummy. All right. This is to all those who are with their heads in the sand. If you are literally sticking to the mainstream party line, upset at Trump or Biden, worshiping Trump or Biden, or worried about grocery prices, your head's in the sand. It must be nice to be that compartmentalized and completely oblivious. Consider it a luxury. You can afford to be oblivious because you don't care where you end up or where your family ends up. That's why we're in a great reset. Intentional obliviousness. Some people are very overzealous in their conspiracy theories. Oh, believe me, I understand. But they have a passion. They know something's wrong. And at this point, to them, everything is wrong. Now, this whole thing with the India going to the moon, I see people like denying that even happened. I don't even care. It's not even a relevant argument to have. Who cares? Who cares? That makes no difference in your world or mine. Oh, but if they lie about that, what else could they lie about? Well, okay. Is that going to change your world knowing if they lied or didn't lie? No. Who cares? What you need to care about is how to save your fucking self. What India does or does not do as far as landing on the moon makes no fucking difference in your goddamn world. but people will make it a problem in their world. That's what I'm saying. Some people are very overzealous in their conspiracy theories, okay? But they have a passion, and I get it, and I can appreciate that. I have the same kind of passion manifesting as well. They know something is wrong, and at this point, to them, everything is wrong. Where's your passion for life, mainstreamers, with your head in the sand? That's why it's so easy for people to fall victim and be destroyed by ignorance. So what are you passionate about, besides falling into the same arguments given to you year after year after year? You are in an amazing time where everyone can speak their mind and find ways to better themselves and their family. We are in an amazing time where we can point out what's wrong with humans and society without coming from discrimination, through ethnicity and sexual orientation or gender. We don't have to knock genders, but we can question the gender roles. We are in an amazing fucking time for you to start giving your daughters and sons and grandchildren another option besides the obvious ones out there. Set your family free from this crazy mind control slavery we all have been subject to for the last 6,000 years. And maybe it's time to tell your daughters and sons they are somebody, even if nobody loves them. Do you have to marry off your daughter and son to somebody? Do you have to set them into these very rigid roles of wife, mother, or sex plaything and academic, who's going to be a wife or a mother, and not deal with her predisposed issues and sicknesses that she has lurking inside from you? So maybe it's time to tell your daughters and sons they are somebody, even if nobody loves them. Okay, I don't need people to love me. I like that my husband loves me and he respects me. And that's fine because we're in a business relationship. We need to have something like that to keep us connected. But I could care less if anybody else out there loves me or hates me. Even if everyone hates them and they're not breaking the law or hurting anyone else, they are so worthy because they stood up for themselves and their ideas. Why else would people hate them if it was for the fact they are different and wanted to change into whatever the hell they wanted? And they weren't hurting anyone. They were not putting their hands on anyone. They had ideas, they had thoughts, they had feelings. And so again, when that poster that was so popular back in the 80s that my mother had to put on my sister's wall, "You're no bunny until some bunny loves you," that's a programming that you're nobody without other people loving you and worshiping you. And even potentially a husband with his version of loving and worshiping you, which could be very destructive. They don't have to determine their worth by how many people love them and worship them. And their mate does not determine their worth. If your worth is determined by your husband and wife, you lost your identity. You don't know who you are. Now you're just a robot to somebody else, serving their wants and needs, and that's it. And now you're just a baby mama, a wet nurse to everyone in that family. You're just a servant to everyone in that family. Imagine a woman who in a traditional household having 5 boys who expect his mother to basically slave for them. Because that's how mothers have been taught to raise their boys, and the fathers promote that and support that. And then the other side of it, some men are treated like just a robot, bank account and the doormat to his wife who will step all over him. And then if he doesn't forgive her for her transgressions, he is threatened with divorce, alimony, and child support, and she will threaten to keep the children away from him. You know this happens in family court. You know children are used as a leverage, as a weapon. And she may take on several lovers, and he still forgives her, because that's the best he can do to take on someone who disrespects him. And if he leaves, it is frowned upon. So he's fucking stuck. Because he doesn't want his mom and his friends and family to say that he is a deadbeat dad, walked away from his family. So he just takes it. He just takes the abuse, takes the disrespect, and just deals with it. Wow. So he's fucking stuck. Because he married a destroyer, a demon, a succubus. That's what some mothers do to their sons. She made him so dependent on her that he won't see danger for what it is when it comes to spouses. Because he married someone like his mother, who was also a type of succubus, okay? Because she's sucking the life out of her son, out of her daughter. He accepts whatever is given to him by whatever female who's willing to give him attention. His doting mothers set him up to fail. But as you know, puritanical mothers will cause the men to become serial killers and hate women, Norman Bates, for example. The men must release those demons out of their body without using their sexual reproductive system to do it, or else he's in danger of becoming a danger to society because of how he was raised by his mother, turning into a good old boy of using women whenever he can, as women are disposable to him. And people wonder why families are suffering, why the family is diminishing and divorce is an all-time high. Even if everybody hates you, your worth is determined by how much you respect your body, your mind, and your spirit. Your worth is not dependent on somebody else telling you they are respecting you. If you don't respect yourself, nobody will. And so again, respect is not using the medical, holistic, energy healing world, drugs, and alcohol. And so if you were teaching the people that this is how you respect yourself, then you won't know what respect is, because then you will allow those to disrespect you because you've already laid the groundwork. You already taught people how you want to be treated. Okay? And so respect doesn't mean just like, oh, hey, hi, what's going on? How you doing? No, respect is you're not allowing the medical, holistic, energy healing world and drugs and alcohol to compromise your immune system. And that is literally a hard pill to swallow, because people were raised with drugs and alcohol. They were raised with the medical, holistic, energy healing world. They were raised with NyQuil, DayQuil, prescription drugs. They were raised with acetaminophen. They were raised with elderberry syrup, antibiotics. If you don't respect yourself, nobody will, because you will teach the world how to disrespect your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that includes the men out there as well, relying on the shamans with all their herbs and extracts. My advice, treat people with respect and reverence, even if it's not returned. You don't have to take abuse from anyone. You can walk away without trying to convert people. You don't waste time with people who want to destroy your body, mind, and spirit. That includes the medical, holistic, energy healing world, because they do most of the disrespect. They do the most disrespect to your body, mind, and spirit. They violate the laws of your life because the intention is to take away your life and pain progressively, as well as take food away from you. You will not get another time like this. Use your time wisely, or be another drone, selling the same bullshit to the same people who will regurgitate the same bullshit to everyone else. Acting like a self-deprecating deep thinker, when in all reality, you're just depressed that you ended up this way. Looking for outward validation so you feel okay with the decisions you made in life. And it's tough to watch these Stepford wives wither under the control of these misogynistic men who only look at them as a sexual plaything and a baby mama, as well as a slave who might have a college degree to give her some respectability in the circles they both influence. And it's tough watching these women teach this lifestyle to their children and their daughters and sons. This is what the 1950s and 60s developed. It's time to move beyond the contrived lifestyles and belief systems run by people who serve to control you and your children. Wake up. You are being given a chance to change. Use your time wisely, or else we get to watch you fall from grace, because it will happen in this environment. After reading all this, you still want to pimp out your daughter and granddaughter to the next available husband in college or on the street or in the bar? Knowing how women raise their sons, you really trust what is out there for your daughter and granddaughters, as well as your sons and grandsons? Now, my situation, I got lucky, but it wasn't luck. I was just, I've had experience in going to different areas and figuring out my strategy. I got lucky as far as meeting my husband, and I also had strategy. I also had to fight for my position in this world and in his world. I had it within me because I already had the training. When you suffer a lot in your youth, you can handle the suffering in adulthood, assuming that you survive and you're not under the influence or destructive. Your daughters and sons don't have that training. Do you really want them to learn the hard way? I guess they're going to have to learn the hard way. I hope everyone survives learning the hard way. Okay? And so when your sons and daughters never had to really suffer with disease or cancers or other types of issues, and they've been given pills and powders and supplements and detoxes and food taken away from them so they don't trigger their immune system, when the climate changes, you really think they're going to be able to handle disease? It's something that is conditioned to release those demons. I already was conditioned to feel pain from the PMS and the PMDD the last 40 something years that I finally kicked the last 3 years. Okay? When you think about it, my situation has been a 7-year process of 40 something years of so much trauma, from biological to drug trauma, like the NyQuil, the DayQuil, the Sudafeds, the Claritins, Triaminic. Okay? Yeah, I smoked pot too at some point, but not so much. But I had to release those demons. If your kid is so dependent on the prescription drugs as well as the over-the-counter drugs, at some point those are not going to work anymore. And your kid is blowing up, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. When are they be able to release the pressure? Because you know that's going to tax the fuck out of their vital organs. No different than a kid that is so skinny doesn't have enough pressure to keep them alive, really, when the climate changes. And so that's for the younger folk, I guess. And you have the 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds who haven't really suffered. They don't know the ways of the world. They get caught up in something, no matter how much the parent tries to protect them. But the parent will not really understand the world has changed and put their kids in situations that they don't have any control over, really, and then something happens. I mean, I'm telling you, raising kids, I wouldn't want to in this day and age. I would not want to. I would not want to. Because you seriously have to fight to save yourself and to save your children from being compromised by so many predators out there. It's very scary out there. And right now, public school is like, wow. But then you keep them so sequestered. Well, what's my answer for all this? Because I'm talking so smack about, the public school system and the influences. Telling you, they have to release those demons. What are those demons? They have to finally face their diseases and let them release. They have to eat food and build up their bone structure, build up their infrastructure, their vital organs. Now is the time, because you really are not competing on a level playing field. Right now, when you think about it, those that are in the movers and shakers or in high levels of positions or government, yeah, they were groomed for that. It was in families. But they're in areas that are not as unstable, catastrophic. And so if you're in an area that you can have time to let your kid get their life back and become a whole person, and they've taken maybe 3 or 4 years and they're homeschooled, right? They're homeschooled, so they have time to be sick and eat food, release demons, study the math and the English through their own, through their own pace. You're not forcing them to compete with other people. And they're homeschooled and they can play with friends and stuff so they get some socialization. But they need the time to be sick. They don't need to have all these activities shoved down their throat. They need time to be sick and release the demons and become a whole person. You have time to do that. You're given all of this opportunity to get your kids to be whole again. So when down the road, when they're faced with so many things that could destroy them, they have the body, they have the mind, they have the spirit to deal with it. They have the strength and the fortitude, and they understand suffering and conditioning to deal with hardship. Oh no, these parents want their kids to compete and keep up with the Joneses and all this other shit. Traditionalists are going to destroy their family. And so what's the training to become conditioned for hardship and for survival? Well, it might mean that the kid needs to stay home so they can be sick, and you have to understand how that works. But again, the system won't allow you to be too sick. So then you have to play that game. You have to work with the pediatrician system. So they know you're not harming your child by not treating their disease if they have some aggressive shit going on. But I'll tell you this, if they are forced to take antibiotics for a certain amount of time, they take their antibiotics and then they have to eat and feed and go through that process, and they're homeschooled and so, it's like At what point does the parent have to then take your kid to see a doctor for antibiotics or other things? Well, that's something they're going to have to figure out. That's the strategy of parenting. At what point do you have to try to calm the suffering? And every parent and every child is different. There is no flat answer. If a parent understands where I'm coming from and they're able to talk to their community and talk to their doctor and talk to the people around them, their kid might have a chance. But if the parent doesn't understand where I'm coming from, yeah, they'll treat their kid until their kid doesn't survive. All right, so, I mean, yeah, we're in kind of a crazy time right now. And so the whole do not comply directives is no different than a scab crossing the picket line. We are certainly living in strange times. So when there are people going on strike and there's a picket line, and so they're trying to shut down the company by not working because they want to have different rules and regulations and whatever, or different contract. Well, when someone crosses the picket line, that's called a scab. So they're going to work and basically say, hey, I'm willing to work for this much money for this reason. While you're out there not making money and protesting in a union, I'm going to come in. And that's what these scabs do when they cross the picket line. That's a no-no back then, crossing the picket line. So when the system says, okay, you got to stay home and stay safe, you can't run your business and run whatever. Okay, I get people are like, fuck. But remember, back then, they didn't want to work for a reason because they wanted better wages. They wanted better conditions. They wanted better contract. Well, the system's like, okay, well, we're going to develop a better world, a better way to live. And you got to stay home and stay safe because there's some shit going on that you need to stay home and stay safe from. And people are going to be scabs and they're going to cross the picket line and go to work anyways. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's ironic what's going on today. Okay? So the whole do not comply directive is no different than a scab crossing the picket line. And it's the government saying, we're going to make the world a better place and you don't want it. Okay, so you're going to go to work and say, fuck you, government. I'm going to be a scab. See, that's crazy when the people did not want to work because they wanted a better contract and whatever, and the scabs cross the picket line. I know I'm being redundant, but I'm really getting this in my head. Now the government's saying, okay, we want a better world, and you don't want a better world, so you're going to go to work, and you're going to defy them. Okay. Oh my God, that's what I'm saying. It's right now, everything is ironic right now. All right, so this is for all my political people in the conspiracy world, worshiping Trump like you would not believe. Oh my God, people are worshiping Trump. Holy shit. If the system is only giving you a choice between Trump and Biden, of course you're going to worship Trump because Biden is like, we're in the Build Back Better and we have economic hardship and inflation and infrastructure breakdown and storms and all this other shit. And so everyone hates Biden. Oh, I can understand. I get it. And everybody loves Trump because, oh, he had lower gas prices. The economy was doing great, allegedly. And this, and this, and this. So, okay. All right, whatever. Of course you're going to worship Trump. Shouldn't that concern you? That's the only options you have at this point, Americans, in this election system right now. Even if you were impressed by the GOP debates the other night, if Trump is your hero and he's the only one, that concerns me. No matter what the agenda is, what it is, Trump was never meant to really have any influence except to fall into the trap of radicalizing not only himself, but the people around them to the point of where they want to overthrow the government, which is not okay. It's against the Constitution. And now he has set himself up to be ineligible to run again because of what he did, violating the laws, violating the Constitution. Oh yeah, the system will give you enough rope to hang yourself. That's what I'm saying. You'll have all the freedom to do whatever, and their laws are there. Just because they're not enforced doesn't mean they won't be enforced at some point. So if you think because they weren't enforcing something on you today, no, they're just giving you enough rope that one day you will lay enough groundwork for them to now go and lay down the law. And it's there. And so I would rather them enforce the laws on me right at the get-go so I know where I stand and I play within the laws versus being allowed to break the laws all over the place. And then one day when I'm not expecting it and I'm thinking I'm home free because I'm untouchable, then they lay down the law and completely immobilize me. That's what happened to Trump. He thought he was untouchable. He thought his his constituents were going to save him from whatever. When they allowed the people in January 6th to rush those barricades, rush right into the Capitol, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. They were so set up. But they had the intention to do that. If the government provided a resistance, then it would be a lot more death and destruction. But the fact they allowed the people to rush in and implicate themselves and set themselves up to be indicted and go to jail says that the government understands what goes on. They know they can't stop people's intentions. But what keeps us together, what keeps everything organized, it's the fucking law. And if you don't know the law and you believe all the stories, you will be stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's what's going on with Trump right now. He thought he was untouchable, and no, he's not. No, he's not. He has a business degree from Wharton. He doesn't have a law degree. He surrounded himself by people, Giuliani and the other dude, but they couldn't even save him. And they had law degrees, and they supposedly are working for him, but somehow something slipped through and... And so no matter what, the agenda is what it is. Trump was never meant to really have any influence. I would be surprised if he escapes the legal lassos. At this point, I say let it ride, right? What's that idiom? To allow something to go unnoticed. To ignore something. He made a rude remark, but let it ride. No one can save this country. The country was gone a long time ago, way back in the 1960s, Vietnam War, okay? It just took 50 years to get here. It took more than 50 years to convince people we are in climate change. This change, this whole thing that's going on has been in the works and in the plan for years. Now you got to look back on everything that you thought you saw. UFOs, could they be virtual images from a hologram from Space Force? All the elections where they just contrived giving you people to vote born against and play that game. Now you got to question everything that you ever did the last 50 years. Okay, so... Here's the thing. So what happened with Epstein and Weinstein and all that? So I watched this movie, on Netflix called Luckiest Girl Alive. And she was raped as a teenager. And then the bullies, the boys that were also bullying other boys, one of the boys that were bullied then became a shooter and tried to, he tried to give her justice by shooting the bully and causing him to be paralyzed. And he spared her life, but he shot a few people. Okay. And so people were wondering if she was part of that, if she had any knowledge that was going to happen. And she says she didn't have knowledge. And so her rapist, they didn't believe her. It came out that she was allowing the boys to do stuff to her, but she was actually raped, and no one believed her. And so later on down the road, she was faced with a documentary and to tell her side of the story, and she does, and outs her rapist in the New York Times. But before that, she and her rapist were talking to each other, and he's in a wheelchair. He has tried to find every way to absolve himself, to find redemption through all of his political stuff, gun control, whatever. And so he tried to pay back what he did without really paying back to her. But she really wanted him to be destroyed. She wanted to destroy him, but he was already suffering. He apologized. But this is the thing. In my opinion, powerful women can get justice without destroying somebody else. Powerful women do not exploit the situation they were in. Rather, they attack the problem in a global sense versus an individual sense. And it's easy to go to the individual, right? It's easy to go and find someone who wronged you, whether it's rape or bullying you, and go and embarrass them. I had the chance when one of the girls emailing me has a website and says all this stuff about what she went through and all this other crap, and I could have exposed that website. I could have exposed her. I could have just completely destroyed her. But I chose not to, because what's the point of destroying someone like that? They have issues, and you can't convert them. Okay? And so it's really not her fault. It's the system's fault that developed her situation. And so powerful women do not exploit the situations they were in. They don't need to give off the nitty-gritty details. What's the point? What does that serve anyone? Okay, except that they get exploited and used and titillated and used as a story and as a whatever. And what does that girl feel like? I mean, they're trying to say, oh yeah, if you've been abused, just tell everyone how you were abused and how and why and all the gory details and leave nothing out and be so detailed. What, so you read a fucking another porn novel, basically? And so powerful women do not exploit the situation they were in. Rather, they attack the problem in a global sense versus an individual sense. Because it's not just an individual problem. What happens to men and women when they become victims is a global problem of how women raise their sons and daughters. And so that girl Ani, who basically outed her rapist, she didn't have to post an article in the New York Times and expose her rapist. Dean Barton already said he was very regretful and used his life to try to make up for what he did when he was a young boy, a teenager. And he was also in a wheelchair, so he's already suffering. He can't fucking walk. He cannot walk. She was very angry from what happened in the past. In the past, her mother tried to protect her even when her mother did not have her husband to help her out. But Ani violated her mother's rules. She wanted to be the headstrong, I'm going to rebel, and I'm going to do what the fuck I want to do. And then she ended up getting raped by a bunch of boys. And so she wanted to do what she wanted to do and ended up in a very compromising situation. When boys and girls have raging hormones, it is very difficult to reason with them. And then boys turn predatory at a very young age, and then 40 years later, they're not the same person. That's why it's so important that mothers become relatively whole people. So if she decides to have a family, her offspring have a short way to go to release their demons and take on maturity. It's very important that fathers release their demons so they're not teaching their sons and daughters to become predators and victims. That's what comes from family. When parents and grandparents are always in the position to be a victim or a predator at some point in their life, and that gets passed down to the offspring, generation after generation after generation, it's very hard to live that down. Instead of titillating people with gory details, women and men release their demons, release their trauma, or else they will go and destroy something else because they are trying to get back at whoever wronged them. And if that person represents whoever wronged them, like they have projected onto me that I've wronged somebody, but someone wronged them in their life and now I'm the representation of that, that's what trauma victims do. They project their trauma onto people that represent the people that have hurt them. And that's why the J world is like, release your fucking demons or you will destroy your friends, your family, your sons, and your fucking daughters. Okay? And I'm going to say, this is going to fall on deaf ears to most people because they will use their religion, they will use their politics, their science, and all of their whatever to absolve them and to justify why they are who they are and why they are the way they are. And they don't want to change. I already know this. I know I'm speaking to walls. And that's okay. I'm just getting it out because I'm so glad I have this venue to speak. Because I've always had an issue with the world. I just couldn't figure out what the fuck it was. It's now in 2023 where I can actually articulate my disgust with the world that I live in right now. And I know now how to finally narrow where the problem, or how to narrow down where the problem starts. And it starts with the mother. And so, yeah, women and mothers have a tremendous responsibility. And a lot of times they abuse their power and they destroy. And so now it's time for mothers out there with young children to figure out how they're not going to end up destroying inadvertently. And that's going to be very difficult in a society that is built on destruction. Built on destruction, absolution, masked as redemption. So then I'm like, about the UFOs. What if all the UFOs you saw or other people saw were just virtual images? It's easy to imply that ancient aliens, like those guys on Ancient Aliens in the History Channel, are connected to those images people saw out there in the skies. Whether it's the Foo Fighters back in World War II, we weren't there. They could have been more virtual images and then direct energy weapons to then match with the virtual images. I mean, you don't fucking know anything. Even what you see, you can't even figure out what you're seeing. unless you're touching it. But will you be able to get that close to touch something? People are afraid to touch things they don't know, okay? So when you see some UFO in the sky, it could be a fucking hologram. And if that UFO was illuminating light below it, it could be a direct energy weapon. You don't fucking know anything. So what if all the UFOs you saw or the people saw were just virtual images? It's easy to imply that ancient aliens are connected to those images people saw out there in the skies. It's easy to make assumptions what happened 6,000 years ago is going to happen again, organically again. And if people saw alien ships crashing, what if it was a virtual image and a direct energy weapon causing the explosion? Question everything and enjoy the show. Try to stay out of harm's way. So attorney sues to make Trump ineligible to be president, to be a presidential candidate. I honestly did not see that coming, but it only makes sense. No one has ever questioned the results before, except for Gore and Bush, but it was the hanging chads. And if Trump admitted he lost and then tried to regain control, I guess that's the loophole. They got him between a rock and a hard place. So yeah, as far as the politics, we already know that's done. I mean, that was the system. That's the system. With what's going on with all the chaos around the elections and the candidates, it's all just as a placeholder for show. We already know they're dismantling the current government that's going on in America and even in, the UK and other places. The elections were always rigged. You were given the candidates. You were given the arguments to vote for and against. Nothing is organic. It's all contrived, planned, and then given to you and presented to you in a way that they wanted to present it to you. Okay? Maybe now it's time you realize that. And so you're all worshiping Biden and Trump or going like, what the fuck? Well, now go to your chat search engine like Bing and say, what is the new government? And the system is going to tell you the new government's coming into play. Just Google it or Bing chat it. And so, yeah, we're heading in. We're in a great reset. We're heading into the new world. If you don't figure it out by now, then have fun in your obliviousness. It's a luxury to be ignorant. It really is. Part of me wishes I could have been ignorant by now. Because if I chose to be ignorant of what's going on, even back then when I was introduced to Alex Jones and before that introduced to loose change, which was actually in my Chapman University organizational development class by a professor who introduced loose change, then I wouldn't have saved myself. I would probably be treated for cancer or lymphoma right now and completely miserable. My husband would have to pay health insurance. Our relationship would deteriorate, if all be even non-existent. Oh yeah. It does not pay to be ignorant. It does not pay to be ignorant. You might have to suffer learning the truth about what's going on, but I'd rather suffer and learn the truth and save myself than be ignorant and fucking die and suffer anyways. And die anyways. So, good luck, everybody. Happy Saturday. Bye.